Hi everyone, today I'm going to talk to you about the economy because it's that important that you need to know about it. Ray Dalio, he's an investment manager over in the US. Over $150 billion he manages. He manages it for universities, he manages it for countries. Many countries have sovereign funds and they've got big pools of money. He manages it for them. He manages a range of people's money, and when he talks, people listen. In the link below, I've put in a 30-minute video by him that explains how the economy works. Definitely recommend you having a look at that. But in the meantime, if you don't have time for that, I'm going to just run through a few of the things it talks about, add a little bit more as well. There are three key parts that drive the economy. The first two are population growth and how much that population produces in goods and services. So you have a big population that works really hard and makes lots of things during the day. Think about when you're at work, if you get a lot done in that day, at the end of the day, as a country, once you add up all the different people, that means we're producing more goods and services. And the final goods and services, the amount they cost, the end product, is how we measure if the country is doing better or worse. So the higher and the more we produce, the better we're doing. Now, when we go out into the world, we can, in a simple sense, spend what we earn. If I earn $100,000 each year, I can spend $100,000, right? And I can buy cars, I can buy phones, I can buy trips overseas. And companies like maybe Apple iPhones, Apple gets really happy when I buy phones like an Apple phone, and Boeing Airlines get really happy when we're going traveling. And these companies get really happy and they hire more people because they're making more money, and they know that we want to buy more plane trips, or we want to buy more cars, so they need more people. And so employment goes up, and then those people are employed and they're earning more money and they can buy more things. And this is called the up phase or the growth phase in the economy. So that's going up like this, the growth phase, and that's when we're all having a great time. Now, there is a point where we say, okay, well, we can only spend what we earn. If I earn 100,000, I can only spend 100,000. But that's not necessarily true, is it? You know, if I want to buy a house, I might earn $100,000, but I might go and borrow another $400,000 from the bank. No issues with that. But that's the third part to the economy, borrowing and debt. So we've got the population, we've got how hard the population works, and the amount of money the population borrows to buy things. At the end of the day, this all adds up to the activity in the economy. The more things we buy, the more activity, the more final goods and services, the more the growth phase happens, and the happier companies are. If companies are selling a lot of things and there's big construction companies making houses, then everyone's very happy and the economy goes even higher. Now it goes up and up to a point where there's no longer the ability to borrow money. So if we bought one house and then we want to buy another house and we're going to buy our third house, the bank might turn around and say, look, you've got enough debt, we're not going to lend any more to you. And at this point, the payback period begins. So this is the peak, and then we must pay back the loan. And the bank's not going to lend us more money, so all of a sudden we're buying less things. We might not buy the newest iPhone, we might not upgrade our car. Instead, we pay the bank back their money. And this is a down phase. People call it a recession. And down we go, and there's less goods and services being produced, and that's when the government comes in. And the government says, oh, all these people elected us, so we elected the government, and the government says, we want to keep our job, otherwise, in other words, we want to stay in power, we better give some money to the people to keep them happy, because they're upset because they've lost their jobs now that the economy's turned down. So the government gives us money or spends a lot of money on things to try and push the economy back up again. The central bank, most of the big countries have central banks that control all the money in the country. They also control the cost of that money, which is the interest rate. So when you see the interest rate falling, it's because the Reserve Bank of Australia is putting the interest rate down, and they're doing that because they want to keep their jobs in a sense. And so what happens then is the economy goes back up, right? And we start to buy things, we start to earn income because we get a new job, and then we start to borrow money because the bank's happy that we're earning more income. We start to buy more houses, and then at some point the bank says, we can't lend you any more money, and that's when we hit another peak. Now these peaks, Ray talks to them as short-term cycles. So short-term cycles, they keep repeating, it goes up and goes down, goes up and goes down. So that's one short-term cycle, that's another short-term cycle. After 70 to 80 years, that becomes a long-term cycle. 70 to 80 years becomes a long-term debt cycle. And at this point, once you've gotten too much debt, so once it's repeated so many times, the debt keeps getting bigger after every single cycle. And also the economy and the economic activity and all the goods and services being produced gets bigger every time as well. And there is a point where you get to that maximum peak, like in 2008-9 in the US, where interest rates go all the way to 0%. The government spends a lot of money, but because there's just so much debt, it's very hard to stimulate the economy, right? So you actually get what he calls a depression, and jobs are lost, a lot of jobs are lost, income falls, banks are losing money, and it all goes down for quite a long time. Now the only solution to that, after that 70 to 80 year period, is to reduce the debt. You have to reduce the debt. I mean, you got to go right to the cause and reduce that. So what happens, he says there's a few different ways. One, you can take the money from the rich people and give it to the less rich people. So the government taxes the rich people and spends for the less rich people. The central bank that controls the money in the country goes and starts printing more money. So the central bank can turn on the printer, the money printer, and print money, and that can reduce debt if you go and spend that money on the debt, for example. And there's also the fact that the banks themselves can take losses. Banks don't always get their money back. So all these different ways happen that reduce the debt at that depression point. And once the debt's low enough, what happens? When the debt's low enough, and let's say we manage to earn a certain amount of income, maybe we get a job, we start to get more confident, we start to buy things again, we start to buy phones and cars and gym memberships and start buying houses, and then the cycle starts to go up again. So it's all just up and down cycles, and that's what the economy really turns out to be, is up and down cycles. And over very long periods of time, as the population grows and makes more things, we have a certain line, they call it a productivity line, of the amount we can produce, and then the borrowing money usually goes up and under that line as we buy more than we can afford, and then have to pay it back, and have to spend less than we earn, and it's just cycles and economy, and it's not very scary. So the next time you hear about the economy, you don't have to be worried anymore. You know how cycles work. You know how it all comes together.